All right, here we go back for the second time on the Dealer Playbook podcast. Welcoming the man himself, Mr. Coach Micheal Burt.
God,
thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook.
What an honor to be back, man. You know, when people invite me back to speak after they've heard me, I just spoke last week. It's the third time I'd spoken at this conference, like back-to-back years.
Wow.
And I was like, man, what an honor to be back on a second time. And it just says a lot about you, and I appreciate the opportunity to come back and continue sharing stuff. So thank you, man, for having me back and not thinking I'm yesterday's news, since you had me one time.
Well, I don't know how you could be yesterday's news because you're pumping out 10x the content that I push out. So, always staying. It's actually funny because I was just watching your live broadcast.
Yes.
Which is kind of where I want to go with this one. I've got a whole slew of questions that came from that. In fact, the last time you're on the show, you mentioned something, and I heard you say it again, and I appreciated the consistency in the message. You said, go for the mentor before going for the money. And this is something I want to explore with you right now because I think a lot of the time people go, oh, wow, I got a good idea, and I can make money with that. And they go straight to trying to portray themselves as an expert. They go straight to I'm number one in the business and all these sorts of things, and then ultimately arrive at this place of discouragement where they go, how come it's not happening the way I thought it should? I mean, I've got some credential, I've got some, this and that. I spoke at a conference, or I was on a podcast once, or whatever. Can you maybe explore this in a deeper, just kind of digging into this? Get a mentor before the money. What do you mean by that, and how?
Let me use a phraseology from the home building world. I've coached some of the biggest home builders in the country. We coach a lot of real estate agents, and I'm going to use a phrase here called bad mud. Bad mud in the home construction business is where when they put bricks together, they're not put together very well, and so at the first sign of friction or the first pressure, they break. Okay, and it's called bad mud. And what I see here is that young people, 20 to 30, 18 to 30, whatever the case may be, they have the opportunity to come out, roll out, and they're all interested in making $80,000 a year, $100,000 a year, and I'm for that. Okay, but here's what happens. Because they didn't go for the mentor first, because they weren't inner engineered to win, body, mind, heart, spirit, knowledge, skill, desire, confidence, they have weaknesses in their armor. There's kind of a chink in their armor. Either they're not emotionally strong, maybe they haven't done the homework to have the content they need. And I'm speaking at big places around the world. I just spoke at Deloitte last week, and
Wow.
which is a huge company. But you should see the feedback I get when I speak at one of these companies. When I'm speaking to 20 to 30-year-olds, either half the group loves it, love this guy, love his energy, love everything about him. He's there, or the other half is like hated it. Feels like a snake oil salesman trying to push something on me, and that's just my energy. I'm not trying to sell them anything. It's just my energy. But I'm sitting here and I talk to some of these people, like on the break or here or there, and I'm thinking, how well is this kid really put together? They may have the knowledge. That's IQ. Do they have the EQ? That's emotional intelligence. Do they have bounce back? Do they have the ability to articulate their value? Do they have the skill of selling themselves? Do they have the EQ of emotional intelligence, of passion, desire, the ability to keep coming back? Do they have a strong grounding? So I'm looking at the whole person, and I'm not just looking at one skill set. And that's why I say go for the mentor versus the money. Work under somebody who's great. Do it for 3, 4, 5 years. Hone all of your skills, and because you're going to get exposed later in life if you don't have some of these things. The market's going to catch up to you somewhere or another, and if you go for the mentor first, you're going to make enough money on the back end of this deal.
So let me ask you this. Going along these lines, in your opinion, is it laziness? Is it lack of patience? Is it naivety? What is it? What forces? Or is that just natural human nature? Oh man, good idea. I'm going to go straight for the stars and giddy up versus, I imagine, well, I don't imagine because it's the route I've chosen. You go for the mentor, and it's a journey, man. It's a pathway of, it could be years to get you to a place where all of a sudden you're banging on all cylinders. So what is it in your opinion that causes us to want to go to the top level right out of the gates.
Well, it's an instantaneous, they want gratification immediately. I'm thinking about one of my friends right now who told me that her son, who's 18, wanted to do an internship under me. And I said, well, he needs to show up at my office on this time. I'm going to be going in 2 or 3 different cities. I got a lot going on. He can tag along with me as much as he wants. He's going to learn a ton, maybe more in a couple weeks than he does in a few years at college. But
Sure.
he opted to go be a server at Cheddar's versus come and mentor with me. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're making 15, 20 bucks, maybe $100 a day, and that's all good for a little spending money, take a girl out, go to the movies. But
Right.
what could you learn in a summer interning for somebody, not just for me, but for somebody who's actually started a business from nothing, no loans, no lines of credit, $7,500 in the bank, that's built $1 million plus company. And I want to be under. I was with Brad Lee last week in Las Vegas as we roll out our new Total Growth Academy, and I learned enough in a day for months worth of stuff. What if I could spend every day with the guy? What if I could spend every day with somebody who's worth $600 million? And so this is the problem, is that, and you heard me talk about it on my show today, is that we don't have aspirational contacts. We're not reaching and grabbing for something bigger. We're just kind of just playing at a very low level, and we rather take a little side money, a little pocket money, than really go learn under somebody who could teach them something. That kid ought to be working at Cheddar's at nights and weekends, and he ought to be working beside me every day. That would be his best education.
And that was going to be my question, because I think a lot of people, they dive in both feet. And look, I don't think I don't think diving in with both feet is a bad thing. I think giddy up, man. You want to learn how to swim, dive into the pool. But, I know there's a lot of people thinking, I have family members and colleagues who say, man, but money is the real thing I need today. So how do we bridge the gap between need for money today and this journey that I'm about to embark in with a mentor that may not translate to, well, like you said, it's going to pay out on the back end of the deal. What's the balance? What do we do?
Well, you're talking to a guy who at 18, 19, 20, 21 worked for as little as $2,000 a year. At 18 years old, I wanted to be a basketball coach, and so they paid me $199 a year. And I made that for 2 straight years. And then I bumped up to an assistant coaching job that I made $2,000 a year. I still had to live at home with my parents. And that was the cost of doing business. For me to get the mentoring, I had to live at home. While I was in college, I was only making $50. But let me tell you what the long play was for me. Every day at your current role is an interview for your next role. Every day in your current job is an interview for your next job. And so I treated my little $199. It's also, biblical. If you study the Bible, when you handle little things, you get bigger things. If you got something, a little cheap thing, you take care of it and you get something bigger. You got a little home, you take care of it, you get a bigger home. You got an okay car, you take care of it, you get a bigger car. And the concept is, can you handle little responsibility so we can give you more responsibility? And so to me, I'm not the guy to talk to about saying, well, let me go for the money first right out of college, but I'm emotionally not mature. I don't have myself together, because I was the guy that lived at home from 19 to 22, making $2,000 a year. But that set me up to be a head coach at 22 years old. It set me up to start writing books at 25. It set me up to do what I do today because I was willing to sacrifice on the front end to not be bad mud. You know what I'm saying? To really have the goods. And when I do get in front of people, here's a good test. Even people that I think are not sold on me maybe, or don't think I'm at a certain level, it's so interesting the moment that they do figure out, man, this guy does know what he's talking about. But here's what happened. It started 25 years ago at 15. And learning and really inner engineering. It's not fluff or pop-up psychology or cotton candy. If you don't have the goods, people can tell it pretty quickly. You can portray you have the goods. And this is what's happening, Michael, on a lot of social media, is that people look like they have the goods. But when you really drill down, what is your hard skill set? What problem can you solve? What can you sell? How can you add unique value? What are your intangible assets that I can't see on social media? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the real deal. What's going on really inside of you?
It's funny you say that too. I've had a couple of conversations in the past, 2-3 months with individuals who go, man, I feel like it's not happening fast enough. I've been grinding for the last I don't know, 10 years. I feel like I've put my heart and soul into this thing, and I just wish I could be further ahead. And it's funny because we see the entrepreneurial journey or the business building journey very transparently now from guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, who's decided to document his entire day to day. And you look at the story of these individuals, or Grant Cardone or yourself. The first 10 years was them doing the exact same thing. I mean, you look at Gary V, who was like plucked out of his baseball card business into the family wine business at 15, and he pounded away at that until he was 25, and then he decided to do Wine Library TV for another 10 years, and somewhere along that path he got some credibility and some notoriety and all these things. But I mean, the guy was in the game for like 25 years before it really started to explode. And now people see the Gary V of today, the Micheal Burt of today, the Grant Cardone of today, and they go, oh man, it just seems like it happened so fast for them. They don't see that, like, it's kind of that iceberg thing, right? They see the tip of the iceberg that's above the water, and they don't see everything that happened, the greater mass that happened below the surface.
Well, when you think about it, I heard Oprah Winfrey say this. They asked her about the Oprah effect, and they said, how do you create the Oprah effect? And this is a fascinating response she had. She said one person cannot create a phenomenon. All one person can do is create something so valuable, so compelling, so interesting, that people's response to what they create creates the phenomenon. When you think about a Cardone, and you look at Cardone's business model, you're talking about going out, and I want you people to think about this that see him today. Think about going into a city and going to car dealerships and selling your own tickets to an event. Number one, you got to make the first sale. You got to get the meeting. You got to sell them tickets to come to the event. You got to get them to the event, and then you got to speak for 8 hours, and you do that, 150, 200 times a year? And he said there was times that he was so cheap on money that he wouldn't pay the $150 for a lavalier mic. And, and I can't even imagine speaking today for 8 hours with no lav mic. That's a brutal business model. When I heard him talk about that, I'm like, man, I don't want to do that, man. I probably speak 100 times a year now, and it's brutal to travel, the airports, the hotels. So that's what people don't see. And he did that for how many years? How many years did he do that? 20 years?
20, 25 years, something like that.
So, we're not talking about 20 days. We're not talking about 2 weeks. We're talking about a guy that grinded out for 20 years. Well, what people didn't see about me is starting at 15 coaching, being a head coach at 18, being a head coach for 12 years at one of the biggest high schools in Tennessee. That was my laboratory, man, that I was grinding it out 80 hours a week, studying and testing my models, my hypotheses, trying to see, testing on my players, what would work and what didn't work. I wrote books like everybody else. The first 3 books are just average books, and then I got better, and then I spoke, and then I got better. But it's still this push that you're talking about that people just don't see. It's a 10-year overnight success story. And then one day they break through, and it's like, man, that guy's, where did he come from, man? Well, he's been grinding for 20 years, man. That's where it came from.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How, you see this all the time, and I'm sure you get it all the time. People go, okay, well, I've got the Grants, I've got the Coach Burts, I've got the Gary V's. I'm going to leech onto them. And I see this all the time on social media. My unofficial mentor, Grant Cardone. And I understand that. I mean, and to a degree, I'm doing the same thing. Like I said, I was just watching your show, and I learned something, and there's something to ponder and to glean from the information that you provide. However, I think there's also something to be said of that one-to-one in the same room energy exchange, that can come from having a true physical present mentor. How does one find that type of mentor?
Well, this is a big question I get asked a lot. How do you find a mentor? I agree with you. I'm still a big believer. Now, we just rolled out our new online platform, Total Growth Academy, and that's for people that don't live in Tennessee, can't come to my greatness factory, can't see me person, so they can get coaching every day by me, right? They can get it live, they can get it virtual, or they can get it live and virtual. But here's the deal. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., I'm going to be in my Greatness Factory in the training room teaching 30 to 40 entrepreneurs, and I teach them in Monster Producer every 30 days. We see eyeball to eyeball, face to face. We feed off energy with each other. And so I'm still a big believer in experiencing that live, Michael. But how does a person find a mentor? Here's the deal. Are you, and I'm going to say this and not in an offensive way to people, but are you worthy of a person spending their time and energy to mentor you? Because I see lots of people that email me or Facebook message me or tweet me or whatever the case may be, and they say, "Well, I just love to spend time with you, and I'd love to do this," and then they don't show up. I'd like to do an internship with you, and then we can't get in touch with them. And here's what I'm saying: if I go to a guy worth $600 million who has his life together in all parts of his life, emotionally, physically, spiritually, his family, and I say I would like to be mentored by you, there's going to require effort on my part. I got to show up. I got to bring a notepad. I got to be hungry and interested. And so we live in that quick fix world where people want to be mentored through emotional identification. And I get it. What you're talking about is emotional identification, where I am kind of unofficially mentored by you because I watch your videos, and that's okay. I was unofficially mentored by Stephen Covey. That's who I studied from 18 to 25. I only met the man one time, but I could recite and regurgitate everything Covey's ever done because I just soaked it up. And I didn't have enough money at that time to get his personal attention. And so we get to mentor people every day through your podcast, through our TV shows, through Facebook Live, and that's good. But imagine how much stronger it would be if we got to see it live. When I spent 4 days with Cardone in Mexico, our relationship went to a whole new level because for the first time, I got to get past all of the social media stuff and just listen to his real philosophy on what 10X really meant. And so when I got to spend those 4 days eyeball to eyeball, talking at the pool, listening, discussing, debating, my respect went through the roof because, like, man, this guy really has substance. It's not all flash. It's not all, it's not all persona. I mean, this guy's got a real philosophy on selling, and he's really good. And so to me, when I got to spend time with Lee in Vegas, I'm like, man, this guy's good. He studied virtual training every way you can study it. And so you get to see the depth of a person when you get to be there with them physically. And every person listening to this should be willing to spend some of their own money to get on an airplane to go see their mentor in person. And they should show up and say, hey, if I just got to sit here all day long. I mean, I spent time with a guy worth $600 million probably maybe 6 to 8 months ago, and I just said this: if I could just sit over here in the corner, you don't even have to talk to me. I just want to take notes. He did talk to me, but I said, I'm just here to learn. I want to see how you deal with people. I want to see how you think. I want to see how you respond to adversity during the day. I just want to be a fly on the wall. Now, we call that the aspirational contact. And it should be part of your selling system. Just like you've got a hit list and a farm club and a top 25, and you should have on there every week one person that you want to spend time with, you want to absorb their content, and you should be hungry enough to go get it.
Yeah, do whatever it takes.
It's at the end of the day, do whatever it takes. People that are hungry enough, we probably had 25, 30 inquiries already on my Total Growth Academy that couldn't afford it when we rolled it out at $5,000. And I said, look, we'll give it to you at $83 a month. And if you won't spend $83 a month on you, you really don't deserve to have a coach. You're not ready to have a mentor. $83 a month, if you can't absorb that, you're not serious about your coaching. You're not serious about your own potential.
And what's kind of interesting to me, what's going through my brain right now, you saying that now and going back to what you just said a few minutes ago, are you worthy of a person spending their time? And the other facet of that's going through my brain right now is, do you believe that you're worthy of somebody taking time for you? Because if you're not willing to spend $83 or you're not willing to buy a book or do whatever you know how to do in that moment to enhance yourself and to make yourself stronger and better and bring yourself closer to your goals, dreams, and ambitions, then what makes you think somebody else is going to spend the time in you?
Yeah, is somebody else more interested in your potential than you are? Why should I spend time with the person that is not even interested in their own potential? And you mentioned a book. A book, for the folks out there listening, a book is not worth $25. I mean, that's what the publisher wants to sell it at. The book is worth, even a bad book, you can find one idea that could be $1 million idea. in
Sure.
a bad book. So I'm a sucker for books. When I go to airports, I may buy 2 or 3 books every airport. All I'm looking for is one idea. And that one idea could be worth $1 million to me. So people say, oh, it's $25. Can I buy the Kindle version? It's $9. Can I buy it used? Can I get it on Amazon cheaper? Just buy the freaking book, man, for $25. And quit being so cheap, because that has a lot to do with your think.
Yeah.
Your think's not big enough. So here's the deal. If I'd spend $25 for the book, how much would I spend to spend a day with the guy who wrote the book? How much would I spend to get coached by the person that wrote the book? That's where we got to get people thinking, is about expansion. And my show I did today was about living in isolation. And, I wrote down one day, when we live in isolation, we make bad decisions because there's no energy. It's like the Dead Sea. We take a lot, but we never give out. And there's no exchange of energy. And because there's no exchange of energy, we just regurgitate the same old thing. There's no growth. There's a lot of stagnation. You're either dynamic and growing, you're stagnant, or you're entropic, which means you're dying. And if you're dynamic and growing, man, you're hungry. You're searching for something.
What's interesting to me too, I mean, as I've gotten to connect with my mentors at a deeper level, some of these guys, $100 million, one of my mentors, probably $2-3 billion, made it big back in the day with multi-level stuff, and that expanded to investments and on and on and on. Happiest people on the planet, I think I know, like genuinely happy. Money is genuinely one of the last things on their mind, probably because they have a surplus of it and they know how to make more of it. But in relation to what you said, they are also still seeking knowledge and learning from people who they aspire to learn from. And so it's kind of this never-ending pattern. So I guess where I'm going with that is embark on the journey and be comfortable with how much learning is going to happen along the way, because you're going to get to the level that you were aspiring to. And next thing you know, you're going to have more aspirations and higher aspirations. You're going to be seeking learning from somebody else. And so it's kind of this never-ending process. And I think there's something in the human brain that makes us believe that there's going to be an end point where all of a sudden, we've arrived and this is it. But that's not the case.
Well, John Wooden was still writing books at 99 years old, still taking meetings, still coaching people, still hungry. It has to do with the spirit of the learner. And you mentioned the way we get paid. I actually think money's the 5th or 6th way we get paid. I mean, we get paid in love, we get paid in referrals, we get paid in affirmation, we get paid in reputational capital, we get paid in a distribution channel back to us. Then we get money. And so when you think about this concept of the spirit of the learner, and I learned this from Dan Sullivan in Strategic Coach when I was in Strategic Coach, is that anything you go to, make up your mind before you go what you're going to get. And if you make up your mind what you're going to get before you go, I mean, when I went to Tony Robbins' UPW in LA, it's 4 days, 50-hour session. And I looked at my guy, and we paid like $1,500 to go. And I got exactly what I was looking for in the first probably 15 to 20 minutes. And I looked at him and I said, man, if we left right now, 15 minutes into this, I will have gotten every bit of my $1,500 back from what I already got. But you know why that happened? Because I made my mind up before I went. So many people go up to trainings and they don't like this and I don't like that. And I didn't like the way he presented and I didn't like he was too confident and he wasn't confident enough. Here's the deal. That says a lot about the spirit of the learner. I have never gone to any training in my life that I didn't get something. And it may have been how not to do something. It may have been, one nugget. But it has to do with the spirit of the learner. You can always find something from everything. If you go into it with that. And so I think you're right. If you don't have that hunger and curiosity about your own potential, and many times, Maya Angelou always said, when we know better, we do better. I do coach people, Michael, that companies have paid for me to coach that have never had a coach. They've never embarked in any personal growth or development. They don't go to seminars. They hadn't read a book in 15 or 20 years. They're just stagnant. But when they do get around some coaching, and they do get around a person bringing, new energy to them, they do open up and say, man, I just didn't know. I never knew that there was a whole nother world out there for me and my potential until somebody walks into my life and shows me.
It's funny. It reminds me of, back in the day when I was a teenager, I was a part of a church youth group, and we went on this long, 3-4 day hike out into into the sticks. I mean, we were way out there. And I remember going through the checklist of items that they needed us to bring, a tin cup, camping supplies, those sorts of things. And so here I was, proud of this, little tin cup that I had purchased. It's strapped onto my belt loop. And I didn't realize, though, that the first day we were going to hike something like 23 miles and that the food was rationed. And so here we are, exhausted at the end of the day. And I get into the food line and I hold out my tin cup and they fill it with this beef broth. And I sucked that back. I mean, I was starving and I sucked back. And then I get back to where I was, where I kind of set up camp. And here's a buddy of mine who decided to bring this massive, I don't even know, like the 7-Eleven massive jug thing that you can buy. And you know what? They filled his to the brim as well. And I learned a valuable lesson, and it reminds me of what you're saying, that yes, you should show up with an empty cup, going along with, hey, make up your mind about what you're going to get before you get there. But also make sure you have a big enough cup.
Yeah.
Like, make sure you got the biggest cup you can find.
Yeah. And, it's like the Swiss Army knife. I'm thinking about you camping out there with anything. Good Swiss Army knife can do multiple things. And that's the skill set we need today. We can't survive on just one soft skill set. We need a hard skill set. We need to be able to sell something, solve some kind of problem, fix something that is broken, or add some type of be an immediate asset. It could be intangible, or it could be tangible. But those are the four things we got to be able to do in today's world. If you can't do one of those four things, you're really kind of obsolete in the world. Well, when you're static and plateaued, or you're living in isolation, or you're not growing, then you really become obsolete because you're not growing and honing your skills, and you're not recalibrating like you need to be successful.
Shifting directions just a bit here. What, in your opinion, is the difference between a mentor and a coach, if any?
I think there's a tremendous difference. I don't think any of my players that played for me, I don't think any of the people I'm coaching right now that are spending $5,000 a year to be coached by me and are monster producer, I don't think they see me as their mentor. I think they see me as their coach. So a mentor, in my opinion, is a person that's kind of been there, done that, offers counsel and advice. He probably does not come back and hold you accountable to that advice. He just kind of disperses, kind of sows seed into you, and it's up to you to take that seed and do something with it. A coach, on the other hand, is going to engage you in a set of systematic and consistent behaviors. They're going to hold you accountable. They're going to push and have hard conversations with you. A coach is going to find and fill your missing structures. I've had both. I've had mentors I went to when I needed counsel and advice, and I had coaches that really engaged me in a process. And so I see a very clear difference between these two people.
Both equally needed, or what's your opinion on that?
I think both are equally needed. I think you'd find it hard. I think about Steve Jobs and Bill Campbell. I think it was Bill Campbell that Jobs took a walk with him every Sunday night. Now, is he coaching Jobs or is he mentoring Jobs? Who knows? But Jobs found him valuable enough that every Sunday he took a walk with him. And so here's the deal. Who's coaching Jack Welch at one time, whether it be Ram Charan or whoever, these guys and girls are going to somebody to either get fed, to work through challenges, to strategize, to find and fill missing structures. So you could call them a mentor in that I need some counsel and advice. Or, look, I need you to hold me accountable. I need you to push me. And to me, there's two types of accountability. There's very amateur accountability, which is what a lot of people think they need. Look, I need you to call me every Monday, Michael, and make sure I'm making my phone calls. I need you to manage me. I don't like that accountability. I don't want to coach people who need that. To me, those are little training wheels. What I'm interested in is coaching a person who says, look, I want to play at the next level. I don't know how to get there, but I come with batteries included, and if you will just show me the way and hold me accountable and push me, I want to play there. That's the kind of accountability. That's professional accountability. And a good coach will break the cycle of start with good intention, fall off the wagon for some variable, and then feel guilty about it. A good coach should help you break that cycle.
What's the most common mistake people make when they embark in this journey? Hey, I've got an idea, I've got a goal, dream, aspiration, whatever it is. I'm feeling the confidence. And then, like you just said, discouragement sets in. What's the mistake that is most common in your observation that's getting people to this discouragement? And how can they overcome that?
I think there's a couple big mistakes I see people make that just have an idea that don't have the engine behind the idea. They don't estimate the cost. They don't know how hard it's really going to be to take an idea to execution and make money with that idea. People ask me, what's the biggest thing you learned in the 9 years of running, Micheal Burt Enterprises? Is how much freaking money you got to make to actually keep any money, to grow, to expand. I mean, I meet with my accounting team today, and I'm sitting there going, she said in the last 2 years I've jumped 3 tax brackets. And she's like, there's only one other tax bracket out there in the world for you to be in. She said, now here's the good news. That's good. The bad news is you're getting hammered on taxes. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is good because we're growing. We showed huge amounts of growth in our company. But here's the deal. I just don't think and I'm like, well, we got to have a COO, and we need a sales team, and we need a marketing team, and we need to grow this, and we need to grow that. Well, then you're right back to you got less profitability. So you underestimate the cost of how much it costs to go big, okay? But that's part of the deal. That's part of the deal. So I think one is taking an idea from idea to execution and sticking with it, having the guts to execute it through. I think packaging is a big problem I see with people. It's like people have good ideas, but they can't package and sell them. They can't package them in intellectual property that people can consume. And what I mean by packaging is anything the consumer can feel, touch, taste. It's not just one thing. It's one thing to want to write a book. It's another thing to actually write one and sell it. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to want to start a coaching company. It's another thing to be able to go out and sell people to come get coached every year.
Sure.
It's so a lot of people, it's one thing to have an online platform. It's a whole other thing to sell it, because they're telling me that lots of people have these online platforms. They do nothing with them. And I wouldn't pay that much money for mine to sit on the shelf and not push it and sell it. That's the whole reason we got it. But they set all kinds of speakers and coaches, they spend the money, they build it, and then they do nothing with it. Why? Because they've got a missing structure. They don't have a selling system. They don't have a customer generation concept. They don't have a sales team. They don't have a marketing machine. They don't have a distribution channel. So that's a lot of the problem I see with most companies is you got good ideas, but for some reason you just can't bring them to market.
Love it. You know what? If I could spend the rest of the day in that, no, I'm kidding. But no, seriously, if I could, that would be incredible. Well, I could. I mean, there's nothing stopping me. But we could talk about this all day. I've got a gazillion more questions that could be asked, and I know these are questions that I get all the time, and so it's refreshing to hear your take, to get some validation, to understand that, hey, look, there's people that are listening and watching to this that are getting that breath of fresh air, like that hope reinstilled in them. Oh yeah, I'm on the right track. It's a journey. It's going to take some time. I'm learning something. I'm gaining. I'm that stone that's being polished right now. And I think ultimately they'll get to a point where, having applied the things that you're talking about today, it will seem like a light switch to them. I mean, even in my own journey, I can clearly recall the last 10 years of grind and hustle. But then all of a sudden I go, wow, it just seems like things really started rolling overnight. Mm-hmm. So, for those that are interested, you've mentioned your academy a couple of times here. How can those listener watching get in touch with you? What's the best way to do that?
Well, the best way is to go to CoachBurt.com. And when you click on coaching, this is the way I describe it. And I think people ask, what does a coach do? I get that a lot. What does a coach do? Well, a good coach finds and fills missing structures. I bring missing structures to the equation. And so we coach everything on how you explain your services better to drive up your close ratios, to selling systems, to how to become people of interest, to how to build, maintain, and protect your confidence. Tomorrow I'm teaching how to scale and sell a company in the first 7 years. And so that's what a coach does for you, is they're basically giving you guidance and structure and strategy on how to go to the next level. And I believe in ongoing coaching relationships, not a one-time hit. So we try to coach people. Now, let's say you're living out there in Phoenix, Arizona, and you say, look, I really like this guy. I like his southern accent. I like, he's a little bald-headed pit bull, former championship coach. I like him for some reason, and I want to be coached by him. We didn't have a mechanism in place, Michael, to do that. And so we went with Coach Micheal Burt's Total Growth Academy, which is basically high-end virtual training, interactive platform, which has all of my content. So imagine getting my program Monster Producer, which is a 1-year program in there, Person of Interest, Zebras and Cheetahs, my selling system. We've got a faith and devotional series for people in there that want to start their day off with their faith and devotion. We got Monster Operations. So the reason I call it Total Growth Academy is because it literally has something for every person. It's not just a sales platform. It's not just, it's really for a person that says, man, I want to go to the next level. And I like this guy. And so that's really what we have in the Total Growth Academy. And we're doing the deal right now at $83 a month. I think it's a fair deal. It's 1 year's worth of coaching for $83 a month. We had a bunch of people sign up this week and last week. And you can get all of that at CoachBurt.com. You just click on, virtual, live, or hybrid. If you want me to come speak, I'm speaking all over the country as well. And so you can experience it 3 different ways, but CoachBurt.com is the best place to go.
Love it. Coach, thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook.
Hey, thank you, man. You're great. You do. I like your stuff. You're very cerebral. You think through things. You very well thought out.
It's because there's no buffer
man.
here,
It's
right?
the swag right here, man. It's all the energy pouring into your head, man. I love it. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.